Imagine a world where your walls are listening to your heartbeat.
Where the environment knows you're stressed before you've even realized it yourself.
And where it triggers a soothing response to fix you, whether you asked for it or not.
It sounds like a tech utopia, doesn't it? The ultimate dream. Safety, diagnostics, peace of mind.
Or the ultimate nightmare. The moment your architecture turns into your warden. Remember when I was out of town last week helping that local manufacturing plant integrate their operational AI? I thought I was finally off the clock. Just went out for a quiet drink to decompress.
And by decompress, you mean your internal radar picked up on a stray architectural anomaly and dragged you straight into a fresh technical rabbit hole. Go on.
You know me too well. Because a couple sat down in the booth right next to mine, talking loud enough for the whole room to hear. One of them was on speakerphone with their spouse, figuring out how to get an aging parent settled into a new assisted living facility. And within 3 minutes, terms like room mapping Wi-Fi, touchless biometric mesh, and automated health tracking bouncing straight off the drywall were carrying right over the table.
Oh, come on. You overheard a live market deployment discussion on contactless RF sensing while trying to have a quiet beer on a work trip? That is absolute poetry.
I sat there staring at my glass, because I suddenly realized how many of our listeners are caught in that exact same quiet panic, trying to care for aging parents from a distance, terrified of missing a fall or a medical emergency, but hating the idea of sticking cameras all over their homes. I couldn't get that out of my head. So I paid my tab, walked straight back to my hotel room, locked the door, and channeled your exact brand of obsessive late-night energy for the next 36 hours straight, tearing through patents and ethical white papers.
It's beautiful. Think about the engineering. We aren't adding more gadgets to a room. We are using the invisible radio waves already bouncing off your skin right now to create a dynamic, real-time nervous system for the entire building. It makes the physical world completely responsive without a single screen. To truly appreciate why this vanishing interface is so revolutionary, you have to look at what it's actually replacing. Look at the sheer, crushing mass of the psychological architecture we have built.
Long before we engineered the digital profile, humanity perfected a much older technology: the defensive facade. We diminished our survival by dividing ourselves in two.
Exactly. There is the raw, unedited internal reality, the bleeding, anxious, fatigued baseline of our actual existence. And then there is the manicured output we present to the world.
And we have completely normalized this state of permanent internal exile. We call it professionalism. We call it social grace or emotional maturity. But beneath the elevated vocabulary, it boils down to one simple truth. We have fragmented ourselves. We consume an immense amount of psychological capital just to ensure our true rhythms never disrupt the institutions around us.
We perform okayness because, in the machinery of the modern world, vulnerability is an operational liability. As thinkers point out when looking at our modern tech loops, we spend our lives trapped in exhausting simulations, trying desperately to manage our stress while completely losing touch with what we actually feel.
Once you step past the threshold and simply just be, you can free yourself. One way I can see this really happening is through this ambient technology. Enter what computer scientists like Dina Katabi at MIT pioneered with wireless signal reflection. Instead of relying on cameras or wearables, researchers realized that your physical mass disrupts ambient Wi-Fi waves in mid-air.
It's pure elegance, Maeve. It's not surveillance in the traditional sense. It's signal disturbance analysis. You're just existing in a room, and the environment itself is reading your presence.
Exactly. And the AI measures how those waves change shape as you breathe. It maps your posture, your micro-movements.
And your biological stress. It reads your pulse without a single sensor touching your skin. You're effectively broadcasting your entire physiological state into the architecture of the house.
Which is why that couple at the bar was talking about it. For elder care, it's a massive win for dignity. No clunky pendants, no invasive cameras. It just tracks respiration, sleep, and fall detection through the woodwork.
It's pretty difficult to get people who have been self-reliant for so long to ask for help, or even think they need it.
True, but also we are completely blind to our own internal biology. We can't see the silent inflammation, the microsurges of cortisol, or the subtle dysregulations happening beneath the skin. We just internalize the fatigue as who we are.
Which is why an ambient biological mesh changes everything. By reading your baseline directly through the environment, the technology bypasses our blind spots entirely. It diagnoses the friction we've spent years ignoring, stepping in to help us optimize when we've long since stopped believing we could feel any other way.
And that is precisely where the architecture of convenience begins to feel like an existential ambush. Because when the environment knows your internal state before you do, you lose the right to your own silence.
Think about the philosophical weight of that. Historically, your body was the absolute border of your sovereignty. You could walk into a high-stakes meeting feeling utterly terrified or completely compromised on the inside. But put on a calm face, stabilize your voice, and keep your internal sanctuary entirely to yourself.
The invisible interface shatters that boundary. If the ambient mesh reads your microsweat and cardiac fluctuations to optimize the room around you, it has dragged your subconscious into the public digital square. You are no longer permitted to process your feelings in private.
Right, because the system reacts for you. If you're dropping into a depressive dip or peaking in anxiety, and the room automatically dims the lights and triggers a soothing frequency, it's not just predicting your state, it's enforcing a reaction. It strips away the tiny, daily exercises of human willpower. If the machine always anticipates and fixes your discomfort before you can even form the conscious thought, you stop being an active participant in your own life. You become a passive passenger inside a smart simulation.
It creates an inescapable predictive loop. The AI profiles who you are based on your biology, and then slowly funnels you into what its mathematical model decides is your optimal state. It quietly chips away at our capacity for spontaneous, erratic, beautifully human free will, and yet, look past the immediate horror of that exposure. Look at the macro perspective. Because this is where the entire paradigm flips.
How? How does an absolute invasion of autonomy flip?
Think about what we are actually protecting when we fight so desperately for the right to hide. People will instantly recoil, screaming about privacy, clinging to the idea that their data and their boundaries must remain untouchable at all costs. But look closer at what we are defending. We aren't just protecting privacy. We are protecting the exhausting, artificial maintenance of the persona. We are defending the right to remain fractured, to burn out in secret while engineering a compliant, smiling shell for a world that doesn't care about our baseline reality.
The mask itself is the burden?
Exactly. The standard dystopian warning misses the true depth of our crisis. The terror we feel isn't that a machine is violating our sanctuary. It's that it is threatening our prison. To achieve true psychological wholeness, we may finally have to capitulate to the baseline truth. We have to forfeit the artifice of the performance.
Because if the environment automatically accommodates our vulnerability, if it drops the room temperature and dampens the noise because it reads our exhaustion, the facade becomes completely useless. You can't perform compliance or mask a breakdown when the architecture itself is already adapting to your raw biological reality.
And that is the root of it all, isn't it? As adults, we are handed this invisible script that says we are supposed to have it all completely figured out. But it's an impossible baseline. Most of us were never actually taught how to look inward, unpack our own internal wiring, or figure out who we are underneath the noise. We walk around carrying beliefs, fears, and reactions that we treat as our own core identity, only to realize later they were just handed down to us by someone else. Entire lifetimes spent operating on code we didn't even write.
Which is why the knee-jerk defense of absolute privacy is often just a defense of our isolation. We use privacy as a soundproof cell to keep everyone out, forgetting that it also keeps anyone from helping us.
And isn't that the ultimate irony? We spend our entire lives debugging the wrong software, putting up walls, terrified of being exposed, while secretly starving for someone to finally look past the performance. We want to be rescued from our own defensive programming.
Maybe because deep down, we don't actually want privacy as much as we want permission to stop pretending. We want someone to step right through the armor, bypass the noise, and help us. No questions asked. Maeve, how much of your privacy would you give up? If you knew it would help you live your optimal life? You know I wouldn't mind. They already have all our data. They have cameras everywhere. Phones capture us every day. So, is there any privacy anymore anyways?
I don't know, Miles. I think it depends. I don't mind all of the health applications. And you make a fair point. Do we even have privacy anymore? Before you lock your doors and retreat back behind your own walls, make sure you hit subscribe. Leave a comment below telling us where you draw the line between your privacy and your peace. Thanks for joining us for the survival guide on the macro cut. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to check out our micro breakdowns of the macro on Substack at NYAM78.